everyone. Welcome to a very special edition of Preemie Chats. Because if you haven't guessed already by our purple outfits, it is World Prematurity Day. I'm Fabiana Bacchini, the Executive Director of the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. Most important, a mom of a surviving twin born at 26 weeks who is 11 years old now. I'm also a former journalist, and I'm happy to be one of your hosts today for our special program.
And this program, Preemie Chats, is the creation of the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation, also known as CPBF. The foundation is a parent-led charity that helps families before, during, and after their NICU stay with support, education, and advocacy. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jenna Morton. I'm mom to twin boys who were born at 32 weeks. They're now almost 11 years old. I'm also a journalist by training, living and working in Salisbury, New Brunswick.
And I'm Leah Whitehead. I'm also the mom of a preemie. Tessa was born at 28 weeks. You're going to meet her a bit later. She is now 10 years old. I'm a former journalist, and I'm thrilled to be also co-hosting today. And I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So as you heard, we are all from different locations in Canada, and our special guests today are also from all over. So with that in our minds and in our hearts, we acknowledge that Indigenous peoples are the traditional guardians of this land that we call Canada, in which we gather here today for World Prematurity Day. We acknowledge the historical oppression of lands, cultures, and the original peoples of this country, and know we have a role to play in the path to decolonization that we share together. We recognize our duty to fight for Indigenous rights to be restored and commit ourselves to the journey of healing. We thank all First Nations, Inuit, Innu, and Métis, their people and ancestors who have taken care of these lands that we share. Let us take a short pause so everyone can reflect on their own acknowledgement and relationship to the land, and be grateful for the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors have taken care of this land for centuries.
World Prematurity Day was birthed in heartache and has grown by love as a way to acknowledge, educate, and help in the global arena of prematurity. The day began in 2008 with the European Foundation for the Care of Newborn Infants and their partner organizations. Purple was chosen as the color for the day, as it stands for sensitivity and exceptionality. Around the world, 1 in 10 babies are born more than 3 weeks early each year, bringing immense stress to families and to the healthcare system. In this country, as many as 30,000 babies are born early each year. Prematurity is the leading cause of childhood disability and death before the age of 5 in Canada. We've recently seen tremendous advancement in the care of premature infants, with increased survival rates in Canada for babies born as early as 22 weeks gestation. But the work is far from over. More than 15,000 preterm infants in Canada each year have special health care or developmental needs. This costs the Canadian healthcare system more than $8 billion annually.
And that is a huge financial burden on our system, obviously, but we cannot ignore the incredible emotional and mental health costs on our NICU families. We are going to be talking about mental health a little later in the show today. I lost my script, Leah. We're going to talk about support, finding community, seek healing, and provide the proper care. While we've been fortunate to obtain some funding to make specific programs possible, CPBF relies heavily on individual donations from people like you.
This kind of support is vital for the healing process, as you heard. So as you watch today's program and take in some of the amazing voices that CPBF is amplifying in the premature world, we'd ask you that you just consider how you fit in helping CPBF accomplish its mission. A donation of $50 can sponsor one family to attend our weekly peer support group. This holiday season, if you buy gifts for loved ones in your life, think about a gift that will impact NICU families. Hey, Tessa. I have a special guest for our next part.
Hi everyone, my name is Tessa. I'm Leah's daughter and I was born at 28 weeks in 2013. I love to share my story of prematurity and show my support for NICU families. This toque is one of my favorites because it says love, hope, courage, and preemie power. With every donation of $75 or more, CPPF will send you one of these winter toques to spread the love even further while supplies last.
Thank you, Tessa.
Thank you.
It's important to remember that even a small amount makes a big impact. And your dollars go directly to creating programs for parents of preemies who are struggling to receive support, find community, seek healing, and provide proper care. And CPBF, as you've heard, relies heavily on individual donations to make programs possible.
And speaking of funding, we'd like to acknowledge our sponsors and our partners who've made today's special program available to you. Our Preemie Chats today is sponsored by AstraZeneca, Medela, and Pampers in collaboration with the Canadian Preterm Birth Network, the Canadian Neonatal Network, Evidence-Based for Improving Quality, the Canadian Neonatal Follow-Up Network, Family Integrated Care, the Canadian Association of Neonatal Nurses, the European Foundation for the Care of the Newborn Infant, and the Global Alliance for Newborn Care. We are grateful for your continued support. World Prematurity Day has been celebrated for 15 years, and it's gaining momentum, with more than 100 countries now taking part in an illumination campaign. Landmarks and monuments are lit up purple between November 16th and 18th to raise awareness. There are 56 sites across Canada turning purple this year, one in every province. We're going to put a link in the comments so you can find the ones nearest to you. The Government of Canada has recognized World Prematurity Day as an official day on their annual calendar.
And CPBF itself has a lot going on for World Prematurity Day, and there are many ways that you can be involved, including wearing your purple today or throughout the entire weekend to raise awareness among your family and friends. There's also an online silent auction featuring fantastic prizes like gift certificates for Petit Lem, The Keg, Tonic Blooms, hockey tickets, and luxurious Lush gift baskets. So bidding is open now until November 19th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So don't miss out on these incredible items and your chance to contribute to a worthy cause. You can visit the auction page and place your bids today. You'll see that in the comment section now.
And if you are in the Toronto area this weekend, join us in person at Kayla Children's Center in Thornhill for a special event celebrating World Prematurity Day. We have a range of activities planned, include a performance by Sunshine and Broccoli, a book reading by children's author Jason DeRocha, and a chance to connect with other families. We are also holding a silent auction with great items to bid on, and we'll be selling our amazing CPBF toques that Tessa modeled earlier today, and special World Prematurity Days that we are sporting here today.
And of course, you're already showing your love and support by joining us here today. And we do have an incredible program lined up. We're going to be looking at prematurity from a variety of meaningful angles. We're going to be joined by the world's most premature twins and lightest twins at birth to hear their incredible journey and how they're doing now. We're also going to talk with the director of CNN, the Canadian Neonatal Network, who is spearheading an amazing project that'll change the outcomes of very preterm babies worldwide. Don't miss our interview coming up. We're going to talk to a grown-up preemie who was born at 24 weeks, and now she's 18. And she's going to share with us the role that prematurity played in her life. And we also just want to acknowledge that we had Silke, who is the chairwoman of the European Foundation for the Care of Newborn Infant, and the person who kicked off World Prematurity Day. She was going to be here to share with us, but because of some delays in travel, she couldn't be here with us today. But of course, we want to acknowledge her immeasurable advocacy and work to raise awareness on this day that's made it as successful as it is today.
And with the global theme of this year's World Prematurity Day being small actions, big impact, immediate skin-to-skin care for every baby, everywhere, we'll also explore the topic of understanding maternal mental health in skin-to-skin care with an expert in perinatal mental health, infant mental health, and chronic pain. And as always, today's session is open to your participation, so please let us know in the comments where you're joining from. I've seen some folks sharing their preemies' names and their roles in their life. Feel free to share your stories, your comments, your questions as we go through. Each of our guests will have a short question and answer period after each of their segments. And it is through these rich conversations like this that we can advance practice and learn together. So please, take part and be heard.
Did you know, in 2023, Nova Scotia's largest NICU began providing couplet care. The couplet, postpartum patient, and the baby is admitted together to the NICU. This often means full feeds and breastfeeding are established earlier, and both get tremendous benefits of skin-to-skin care.
While some families experience a preterm birth a few weeks before their expected due date, for others, it's months before. My twins were due in April and born in February. But our first guests today experienced twice that time frame, with their twins arriving 4 months early. Kevin and Shakina are the parents of Adia and Adriel, who hold the Guinness World Record as the most premature twins to celebrate their first birthday, and we're so excited for them to be joining us here today. Thank you, Kevin and Shakina, and welcome.
Thank you, Jenna, for the kind introduction. Happy World Prematurity Day, everyone.
I know you guys have been a bit of a whirlwind, not only in your parenting life, but also your media life, with lots of attention on your case. So we really appreciate you taking the time to dive in once more and share your story with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. We're very honored to have this platform to share our story with you.
Wonderful. And you've prepared a bit of a presentation for us, so I'm going to bring that up and let you guys kind of take over for a little bit.
Sure. Hello again, everyone. My name is Shakina.
And my name is Kevin.
And we are parents of Adia and Adriel, who were born exactly at 22 weeks and 0 days gestation. And we're here to share a little bit about their story and to talk about the role of skin to skin in supporting our babies' developmental outcomes. Just a little bit about little of background of how we became pregnant. We were trying for 7 years to conceive, and we had a difficult miscarriage in the summer of 2021. But in the fall of 2021, we finally got pregnant again, at this time with twins, a boy and a girl. And it was a smooth pregnancy with no complications. However, at 21 weeks and 5 days into the pregnancy, I started bleeding and I was admitted to the labor and delivery ward of our local hospital. There, within a few minutes of being examined, I was told that I was in full labor, that the babies were going to be born that day, and that nothing could be done other than to offer comfort care, which would involve placing the babies on us after they were born and waiting for them to naturally pass away. There would be no other interventions to keep them alive. We asked desperately for medications, for procedures that could delay labor, but we were told that it wouldn't make a difference, as there was no chance that babies could survive being born at 21 or even at 22 weeks.
Yeah, so in those moments, no words could capture the emotional, mental, physical trauma and anguish we faced. We were pretty much at a loss for words and in shock and at fear that, we were going to again lose our babies and our pregnancy for the second time. I recall being awake at around 2:30 a.m. that night, not being able to sleep, just crying out and praying to God and asking for a sign of hope. Shortly after that, a close friend of ours had sent me a screenshot, what you see on screen, with two images, one being of a mom who had also been admitted at 21 weeks and 5 days. And the doctors had told her that there's no way her twins would survive and they would essentially be medical waste, as you see in the screenshot. And a second image that now showed her 3-year-old twins that were thriving and doing really well. So in those moments of anguish, this was something that gave me hope, and I immediately reached out to this person, Kayla, who runs the Instagram account, and she instructed me about Mount Sinai Hospital as being one of the hospitals that resuscitates extreme preemies. The next morning, we immediately requested for a transfer, and that request was accepted. Once at Mount Sinai, we were informed that resuscitative efforts could not be pursued if the babies arrived before 22 weeks due to policy. We were warned or cautioned really that even if the babies survived, there would be a high chance of significant physical, cognitive disabilities across the board that would affect their quality of life.
Although these conversations were very difficult, we held fast to our decision that we wanted everything possible to be done to save our babies. We acknowledged those risks, but we maintained our stance that the babies deserved a chance to live. Their quality of life would not be determined by their abilities or disabilities, but by the love, nurture, and support that they received from us and their community.
Yeah, so miraculously, although Shakina was in labor for over 40 hours, the babies were born right after midnight at 22 weeks and 0 days gestation and were successfully resuscitated. Adia came in first weighing at 330 grams or 11 ounces, and Adriel came shortly after, 23 minutes later, weighing in at 420 grams or 14 ounces. The first few weeks in the NICU were the most heart-wrenching time of our lives. The babies experienced many major medical issues, including advanced bleeding in their brains, chronic lung disease, pulmonary hypertension, bruised and excoriated skin that would peel off at the slightest touch, several bacterial infections that led to sepsis, pneumonia, multiple blood clots, fractures, issues with the heart and kidneys, ROP, and bowel perforation for our son Adriel with a neck diagnosis, and so on.
It was painful to watch them be subjected to so many invasive procedures, pokes, tests, and treatments. We watched both Adia and Adriel almost die in front of our eyes several times, and at one point we're asked by doctors to consider if we needed to withdraw medical care for Adriel, who was in very critical condition. Although we were devastated, we emphasized that we would never stop fighting for our babies. Their lives were important and worth saving. And the doctors were doing their due diligence in anticipating possible challenges, risk, and outcomes in the future. But we chose to focus on the small baby steps of progress that the babies were making in the present and to advocate for them every step of the way. And Adia and Adriel were true fighters who fought very hard every moment of every day to stay alive and to move forward. And they overcame every major medical challenge that came their way.
The family integrated care model allowed us to be fully involved in the baby's care since day one. Nurses encouraged us to sing to the babies, talk to them. They reminded us that the babies could hear us, knew our voice and our touch, and they could feel our presence in the room. They taught us how to change their diapers, to check their temperature, give oral immune therapy, encouraged us to attend daily rounds, participate in conversations and decision-making with the medical team. The babies were not stable enough for us to do skin to skin at the outset in the first few weeks, but the nurses showed us how we could be involved in touching the baby's fingers and toes so that they could feel us. About a week or two later, the nurses showed us how we could hold the babies in our hands from inside the incubator.
And about a month and a half after the babies were born, the team planned for Kevin and I to do our first skin to skin with the babies. It was a whole team effort involving many nurses and respiratory therapists. I remember how nervous I was. The babies were both intubated and very fragile. I knew that any sudden movement could result in them losing their breathing tubes and even losing their lives. So we had to be very still, and I held my breath for as long as I could. And there's a video clip of that very first moment where Adia was taken out of her incubator and placed on me that I would like to show you.
I can't smell it, but other people can smell it. I can smell something. Yeah. Yes, got the alarm, okay? I paused the feeding, so that's why it's alarming.
I'm good, thank you.
Numbers are
You got
still
a
yes.
You go ahead.
Maybe we'll move one closer. I think before that, I kind of want to stick her up a tiny little bit, okay?
Alright, it's just ending the door. Fun, sweetie. Okay.
Do I have my hands in the right place?
Yeah. So one goes on her head. Perfect. All right.
So very much like Shakina, you can see baby Adia was just slightly bigger than my hand. So I was extremely afraid. Had felt like I had to hold my breath, but at the same time, upon contact, making that skin contact, I just felt emotions that I can't relay in words. But it was an extremely special moment.
Mm-hmm. Doing skin to skin with Adriel was more challenging, and he was in a critical condition. And I recall one time holding him and his face turning blue, and he almost lost his life. And there was a big code announced and a staff assist, and I felt very guilty after that. I felt that it was my fault in wanting to do skin to skin with Adriel that almost cost him his life. But the team at Mount Sinai, they were so amazing in reassuring me about the importance actually of me holding Adriel and encouraging me to try again a few days later. And this was the first time we were able to hold the babies together. This was 4 months into their NICU stay. And for babies who had been alone in an incubator for the first few months of their lives, this was a very special moment because they now knew that they were a part of our family. They felt safe and comforted. They knew how much they were loved and how much their lives mattered. This moment brought emotional healing to us as parents as well.
Adia and Adriel were in the NICU for almost 6 months, and during that time, we spent as much time as we could every single day with them. I was able to get special permission to bring in my guitar, so we would sing to the babies. Shakina would read storybooks to them daily, and we did skin to skin for hours every day, several hours every day, and noticed marked improvements in their breathing, their muscle tone, their reactions to the environment. Towards the home stretch of the NICU stay, several members of the medical team mentioned that our consistent involvement made a significant difference in their outcomes.
Adia graduated after 161 days in the NICU, and Adriel went home a week later after 167 days in the NICU. And there's a short video clip of our very emotional farewell as we walked out of the NICU with both babies. The babies celebrated their first birthday in March this year. This is a picture from their birthday party. And coincidentally, on their birthday, they received 2 Guinness World Records, one for being the most premature babies in the world to have survived to that age, and the second record for being the lightest twins to have survived. But being home hasn't been without challenges. After a few rehospitalizations following the discharge from the NICU, Adriel had to go on home oxygen for 6 months as therapy for his lungs and his heart.
Adriel also has to wear glasses as he's severely short-sighted, although he always finds a way to rip his glasses off every few seconds. He also had to undergo surgery recently, and the babies have had several follow-up specialist appointments. They have weekly physio, occupational therapy, speech-language therapy, which means we're in and out of the car a lot.
Despite these challenges that they face, they are strong, resilient, they're happy and very social babies. They enjoy food, playing with each other, annoying each other, exploring and being around people. They're very chatty. Interestingly, and maybe not a coincidence, but Adriel's first word was actually purple in conjunction with World Prematurity Day. And both babies are working really hard to try to walk as well. They are truly the greatest blessing of our lives, and we wouldn't have had them any other way. We appreciate everything that we learned as a result of being with them in the NICU for so long. So, in closing, we would like to leave you with a few takeaways. Firstly, for parents of premature babies, I want to remind you of how strong, resilient you are, and that you are capable of facing the challenges that come with having a premature baby. Your journey may seem overwhelming, filled with uncertainties, but remember that your child carries within them the incredible power of resilience. They have been fighters from the very beginning, showing all of us what it means to be courageous in the face of adversity. As you experience the ups and downs of your baby's progress in the NICU and the challenges that come with being home, remember to celebrate every small milestone, each gram or ounce gained, every moment of eye contact, each gentle touch you share are triumphs for you to cherish. It's okay to feel a mix of emotions: fear, anxiety, sadness, guilt, like I did, disappointment, frustration. But remember that you are doing everything you can to support your little one. Lean on each other, your family, and the medical professionals who are here to guide you. Seek out support groups and connect with parents who have walked a similar path. Their experiences can offer valuable insights and comfort during this challenging journey. Above all, never underestimate the power of hope. Your baby is a miracle, and miracles happen every day. Keep the vision of a bright future for your child in your hearts. Your love and your care are your child's greatest sources of strength, and it will help them thrive and overcome any obstacle they may face.
And for parent partners, your role is incredibly essential. You're an important bridge between healthcare professionals and parents. You offer a unique perspective to navigate the complex world of the NICU, and your support and guidance provides comfort and hope as you walk a similar path and understand the roller coaster that parents are riding. Your support can be a lifeline for families going through one of the most difficult chapters or seasons of their lives. To every medical professional who works with premature babies, the work you do is nothing short of extraordinary. Your impact goes beyond just medical care. Your pillars of strength for parents who are often overwhelmed with fear and uncertainty. Keep working collaboratively with parents, involve them in your baby's care decisions, and offer them a sense of partnership. You can empower parents to be active participants in their child's healthcare journey, foster a sense of agency and control in an otherwise very unpredictable environment. Help them to recognize and celebrate every small milestone and offer a shoulder to lean on during setbacks.
We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your unwavering dedication and the difference you are making in the lives of parents and premature babies every day. You are true champions, and your contributions to the healthcare community are immeasurable. That's it from us today. We'd love to connect with you and hear any questions and comments you have in the Q&A segment shortly. And happy World Prematurity Day.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Thank you both so much for the time and effort you put into that presentation for us, and for opening up your lives and sharing them with us all. There was a lot of moments of hope and a lot of memories coming back for people. You can see in the comments that are coming through, and from those of us here in backstage nodding our heads and touching our hearts. There's a lot of memories that are tied up for all of us in these kind of things. And I appreciate you opening up those doors today to share with us. So thank you for that. I'm going to just ask the two of you to stay in our backstage for a little bit as we bring on our next guest, who also played a role in your journey. Dr. Prakesh Shah is the pediatrician in chief at Mount Sinai Hospital. He's a professor in the pediatrics department at the University of Toronto and director of 3 neonatal networks, both national and international. And we are thrilled to be welcoming him to join us here today. Dr. Prakesh, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jenna, and thank you for that wonderful story with Kevin and Sakina.
Oh my, so many.
I don't want to speak.
I know. There's so many memories tied up for those of us who've been parents in the NICU, but I can only imagine as a healthcare worker who's seen hundreds and thousands of families, the kind of images and memories that something like that brings up. And I wonder if we could start there. I wonder if you could share a little bit of what it's like to be a healthcare provider and being along on these journeys.
Yeah. No, it is. First of all, thank you very much for organizing this event, and everyone, happy World Prematurity Day. And wherever you are, whatever way you are celebrating, this is an amazing work that you have been doing, and putting this event together, as well as the Sunday one that will be attending. It's it's also been on the other side of the story. I think with the Kevin and Sakina, we also portrayed this in one of the papers in the Canadian Medical Association Journal as to what it feels like to be a nurse taking care of these babies every day, what it feels like to be a social worker, as well as a physician. And it's always with the mixed emotions, and we love this success stories or things that happens well and that ends well and continues to do well. But at the same time, we also have to bear the brunt of some of the unsuccessful stories as well. So it is always a mixed emotion, and we would like to trade on the way of making sure that we both understand as a parent, as well as a healthcare provider, as to what we are doing, why we are doing, and what is the goal. So it's a mixed emotions, and one can imagine what we are sharing here is a success story, but there are parents where babies were not that fortunate to make it to this stage, but at the same time we just want to make sure that their journey is not any way different than what other parents felt as well.
Very important part to share.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the medical challenges that are faced with a situation like this. You know, we're talking about the importance of zero separation and skin to skin, but sometimes babies are very medically fragile. And I know that was the case. You know, they referenced how long before they were able to fully hold them. Can you talk a little bit more about that aspect, especially about this case?
Yeah, not taking away anything, I mean, and as soon as possible and as long as possible, the contact and the skin to skin is very, very, very important for everyone involved, for the baby, for the mother, for the father, grandparents who can do it, or and even the healthcare providers, because we can see the joy, we can see. I mean, immediately babies become so stable. I mean, the baby whose oxygen was fluctuating, as soon as it goes on the mom's skin, the babies become more stable and more controlled, and requires less support. So it is very, very important. But at the same time, the fragility that comes with extremely premature or a small baby, because as Kevin was mentioning, the skin was so fragile. I could tell you that within the second week to the fourth week of their life, their PIC line, the one that is the line that goes into to provide the nutrition, was so much fragile, so much difficult to secure, because any tape we put on Adriel's leg to secure that, next day it will just peel off and come off, and come off with the skin. Not only come off with a layer of the skin. So in those situations, it is very difficult, but there are other ways that we support the parents to be with the family, like holding the hand hugging, touching, opening the incubator as much as possible without losing the hit, and talking to the baby, singing to the baby. So there are a lot of other ways. But in the bigger babies, when it is feasible, it should be done as much as possible, as soon as possible, and as long as possible.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more. You touched on it there that, you know, when we talk about the importance of skin to skin in this time, that it's not just baby and mother, it's grandparents, it's fathers. What do we need to be saying and sharing and doing to make sure that this is happening?
Yeah, I think I would say that it's no brainer. I mean, I think everyone, and it's not that any healthcare providers or anyone taking care of the babies, both families as well as the healthcare workers, have any reservation as to we shouldn't be doing this. but the concern comes in the safety when there are 20 lines and tubes going on through the baby. As you can see, and as Shakina mentioned, it took a village to get those babies out and put on both of their chest. But that's okay. I mean, we will gather the support, we'll gather the people around and put them to make this happen, and as much and as long as it happens. But again, it should not be restricted to the mother. It's fathers are equally important. I would say more important, being a father, because they will always feel that they are kind of completely lost. Mom is at least pumping and providing milk. I mean, what am I doing? And in those scenarios, it is very important that that opportunity is presented, given, and taken to everyone that is in.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about getting the healthcare team and the healthcare community in a broader sense on board with these types of initiatives and this level of care.
Yeah, I think, of course, I wouldn't be here to say that no, everybody does it and everything is hunky dory and everyone wants to do. There are difficulties, challenges that happens, but more and more evidence is coming through, and I think it would be important for us to keep on presenting, both from your perspective as well as from medical perspective, that importance of it, benefits of it. Recent paper showed even 30 minutes to 60 minutes has a huge importance in both baby's health as well as parental mental health. So it's any length is better. Continued education as well as the support that would be needed would need to be in place. You can't have all 50 babies doing skin to skin at the same time, having not many people around to help, kind of thing. But we can, of course, make sure it can happen, it will happen, and educating them the importance. There are a lot of newer staff members that are coming on board with the staffing challenges, and they've heard about it, but they may not have the complete grasp of practicality, and we need to enforce it and encourage them to train them.
I think that's a very great spot to maybe bring Kevin and Shakina back on to join us here. And I'll give you a moment to say hello.
Hi, Dr. Shah.
Good to see you.
Hi, Shakina. Hi, nice to see you.
And I'm wondering if you guys could share a little bit. What kind of jumped out for me in your presentation was sharing what it meant for you to see that picture of another mom and her twins, and that story of hope, and what it means to be able to have this opportunity to share in a way that, even 5-10 years ago, we didn't have.
Yeah, no, I think that was a sort of a pivotal moment in our story, just going from hearing that you've lost your pregnancy, our condolences, to having that glimmer of hope that there is a hospital out there, there are hospitals out there that are willing to sort of push the envelope in helping resuscitate these kind of scenarios, right, with extreme preemies. So that was, I think, for me, pivotal in knowing that all was not lost in that moment.
Yeah, and something that we have shared whenever we've had a chance to speak to healthcare professionals is the importance of also sharing the success stories with parents. And I know, as Dr. Shah said, it's not always a success story. There are many babies who haven't been able to survive past, and there tends to be more of a focus on mortality rates. But I think it is important to highlight, even if there are few success stories, to highlight the few success stories there are in order to bring hope to us as parents, and to help us make more of an informed decision.
Absolutely, I completely agree with them, and that's have been the focus of our discussions since we started doing resuscitation of the babies at 22 weeks and at the 22 weeks. Again, our field has been this 10-15 years ago, we were talking about 24 weeks, exactly same discussion. 7 years ago, it was 23 weeks. Last 2 years, we've been talking 22 weeks. And this has all happened because of the advances and the challenges that we have put ourselves and say, okay, well, let's try. I'm sure in 5 years' time, we may be talking about 21 weeks. I'm dreading it, but we may be talking because it's going, it probably will come. And we also have talked about how to survive, how to save the babies in keeping it in an environment similar to creating like an uterus outside for 1 or 2 or 3 weeks and then take them out. But it's all progress that is happening kind of thing. But I completely agree that discussion needs to be both in terms of challenges as well as opportunities and the success stories. And because none of us want to guide them. No, everything would be great, right? Because then it creates false hope as well. So realistic hope is what we try, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, Kevin and Sakina and we have talked what discussion happened at 7 p.m. and at 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. and what happened after 12 p.m. when they delivered. And later on in their journey, when they were in the NICU, we were sitting and talking a lot about it as to what could have been different.
Yeah. I want to thank you all for taking the time to join and share with us. We have lots of wonderful people commenting and sharing some of their stories. I'm just going to pull a few of them up so you can read them and see them. We've got some really lovely comments thanking Dr. Shah and his team, 23-weeker twins who are thriving. And we've got a few more here. Again, just it's so fabulous to see so many families coming back. I still remember one of our neonatologists kind of hammering it into us before we left the NICU, how important it was for us to come back and visit and to let the staff, the healthcare workers, the nurses especially, know how our babies were doing as they grew up and how important that was to their mental health and how they approached their work. So I'm very touched to see so many people commenting and joining in and being able to share these as well. It's a special job that everyone's doing. And I thought this was one comment that I wanted to just touch on before we wrap up here. Because I think all of us, we do have that tendency to judge our stories against someone else's after the fact and oh, well, my baby was only born at 37 weeks and theirs was at 20 weeks. And it's, I think it's important for us all to acknowledge everyone's story is hard for them. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, yes, we can take strength from each other in sharing these stories, no matter what your journey was. It's your journey and it's worth sharing with all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all the parents for the comments.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you both again, all three of you, for joining us and wish you a happy World Prematurity Day.
Happy World Prematurity Day. Thank you.
Did you know World Health Organization guidelines on prematurity recommend that skin-to-skin contact with a caregiver, known as kangaroo mother care, should start immediately after birth, without any initial period in an incubator.
With our next guest, we'll discuss the birthing parent mental health perspectives in skin-to-skin care. Despite supportive skin-to-skin policies reported by 80% of Canadian hospitals, only 37% of hospitals report that most of their NICU babies are held this way regularly. Parental trauma, fear, anxiety, and hopelessness might be critical factors impacting uptake of skin-to-skin care broadly and skin-to-skin contact for painful procedures specifically. A discussion of recent pilot work related to maternal mental health perspectives will be presented, in addition to current research examining how reducing maternal mental health stress can potentially optimize skin-to-skin. And I'm going to just bring here our guest. Dr. Rebecca Pillai-Riddell. And before I introduce you, I just want to mention as a reminder that earlier this year, the World Health Organization released a call to action that called for a fundamental reorganization of NICU care to accommodate 100% of preterm infants receiving kangaroo mother care due to its positive impact of preterm outcomes. A few of the numerous benefits include a reduction in mortality and parental depression, alongside other long-lasting outcomes such as improved brain maturation at 20 years of age. It was also recognized that the benefits of kangaroo mother care cannot be actualized without addressing maternal mental health. This is such an important topic, and Dr. Rebecca Pillai-Riddell is here live with us today from Toronto. She is Tier 1 York Research Chair in Pain and Mental Health and Director of the Opportunities to Understand Childhood Hurt Laboratory in the Department of Psychology of York University in Toronto. She is also a registered clinical psychologist focused on work in perimental mental health, infant mental health, and chronic pain. Dr. Pillai-Riddell, thank you so much for being here with us on this very important day for our community. We are very excited to have this conversation with you because you really gave me a different perspective on understanding skin to skin and mental health.
Thanks so much, Fabiana. And actually, I have to thank you and the CB Canadian Premature Babies Foundation for their help in the pilot data that I'm about to discuss. So I'm speaking to the converted when we talk about the benefits of skin-to-skin care. It's a beautiful biopsychosocial synchrony that, when done well and when done a lot, has the potential to strengthen both mother and child. I, as a pain researcher, actually skin to skin came to me thinking about the infant in pain and actually thinking about discrete moments of skin to skin contact that are especially influential. There's many research studies now at this stage in medical science that show that skin to skin care moderates the pain responses of preterm infants experiencing painful procedures. Recent research that our lab has conducted actually looked at different groups of babies trying to getting heel lances in different parental situations. We had a group of parents who chose to have their baby in skin to skin during a routine heel lance procedure. We had a group of parents who chose to hold their baby but clothed. Both the baby and the child and the parent were clothed. And then we had a group of parents who allowed us to use their data when their baby had a heel lance in an incubator alone. And what we were really interested in is how the brain processes pain and if it's different for babies depending on how they were held. So nothing else changed about the heel lance or how the heel lance was conducted. All that changed was the context in which the baby had the heel lance procedure. And our research showed that the baby's brain, when held in skin-to-skin care, showed less of a pain response when they were held in parents' arms. What we found was even more interesting because we kind of assumed it and we hoped this just gives more cortical evidence, not just behavioral and physiological, but cortical evidence to support the use of skin-to-skin care. But what was interesting to us is that what we found that there was no difference between holding a baby when you're clothed and actually having the baby in the incubator. And what we think it is that when you take a premature baby out of the incubator, it is a little distressing for the child and they have to regulate. So it's a bit dysregulatory. And when you put the baby in skin-to-skin care, the multisensory saturation of the smells, the sound, the feeling, the warmth, that is enough to quickly regulate the baby. Where in that immediate minute, which is when we were sort of looking at these reactions, actually seconds within those minutes, what we found was that there was no difference between holding the baby holding the baby in arms clothed versus incubator, because we thought that the clothing may interfere with some of these beautiful aspects that skin-to-skin care has naturally brought upon the child in terms of a regulatory capacity. So I really am not, our research, the research of many people, scientists around the world have shown the benefits of not only skin-to-skin care, but skin-to-skin contact for these discrete painful procedures. But as Fabiana said, the data that she presented is Canadian data, PHAC data, while the vast majority of hospitals have supportive policies to ensure skin-to-skin care. Less than half of infants are in skin-to-skin care most of the time. And one of the things that we think could be moderating this is maternal stress or birthing parent stress about holding child in skin-to-skin care. It's not a topic that's brought up a lot. And one of the reasons we're studying it, we're actually in Mount Sinai Hospital as well, within the NICU unit, and doing research there, trying to understand the connection between mothers and babies before and after skin-to-skin contact around a heel lance procedure. What we were wondering and what we're exploring right now is that relationship between how regulated the mother is and how regulated the baby is while in skin-to-skin care. And so with Fabiana, we pitched this idea early in the year, and we were so grateful to have the support of not only her, but our organization, to be able to start thinking about doing some pilot work on this idea about regulation. And where we wanted to start is with the parent's perspective. And so parents talk about, all parents knew, and we had parents who had been in the NICU like a year and a half ago to parents who had been in the NICU 10 years ago. And these were parents from all across the country. We did these in-depth interviews with 7 parents. And so again, all preliminary that we really conducted in the hopes of getting a grant, so keep your fingers crossed. And they were really getting them to talk about the stressors that they felt when in skin-to-skin. And if I could summarize the ideas, and so much of it came in the stories we heard with Kevin and Shakina, the first cluster of stress that they reported was the fears about lack of experience. So a lot of them talked about, I hadn't had any experience with any babies, let alone now having a medically fragile baby. And so that fragility as well of their newborn also scared them a lot. So the idea that they could hurt the baby, that they could disrupt the equipment or the tubes or any of the monitoring equipment, and the idea that they blame themselves for previous failed attempts. So one thing that many parents brought up was the idea that they would put the baby in skin-to-skin care. And they said that like the nurses and the staff would say this is the best place for them. But then time and time again, it would happen in those first few very significant times of skin-to-skin where the baby had to be removed from skin-to-skin because they became unstable. And so the parents sort of internalizing that. When we talked about other areas that came up in terms of their mental health perspective and their perspective in doing skin-to-skin, they talked about really feeling hyper vigilant about waiting for alarms and monitors to go off. So some parents actually talked about, it's supposed to be this relaxing thing and they want to do it and be there for their baby. But the idea that they were just waiting for an alarm to go off or something to go off made them very uneasy and not feeling relaxed in skin-to-skin. And then some reported like having the baby in skin-to-skin. They were talking about this was a case for not just the mothers, but the fathers. They were scared to do it because they thought it would make them bond, and they were worried they would lose their baby, that their baby would not survive. And then in the context for us of pain, we're doing our research around a very specific instance of skin-to-skin contact, and that's during painful procedures. Parents reported that they felt stressed because they'd heard somewhere that skin-to-skin is good, but then they were dissuaded by staff to be in attendance for painful procedures. So they felt, well, if the staff said I shouldn't be there, maybe I shouldn't be there. They also were scared that they'd be associated with the painful procedure, so they didn't want their baby to be getting painful support, being in skin-to-skin care, and then thinking that they were the cause of the skin-to-skin, that the skin-to-skin was the cause of the pain because they wouldn't understand it was the heel lance. And then just really the stress of being around a baby receiving a painful procedure, around their baby having a painful procedure. And so when we asked parents about the pattern of stress or their adjustment to skin over the course of time. What over the course of their NICU stay, we sort of saw that there was three groups or three sort of patterns that were described. We had one pattern where the mother reported that she was just excited from the get-go. She knew she was scared, but that did not compare to wanting to hold her baby on her chest, in her arms. And so while there was anxiety and stress, it wasn't the predominant pathway. She adjusted and wanted to do skin to skin as much as possible. Then we had another group of mothers who described that fear, a significant amount of fear, hesitation, the first few times. What they found was that after getting exposed to it, after being able to do it time and time again, realizing that sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't, there were always the ups and downs of having a baby in the NICU, that it was a positive experience, they adjusted to it, and they wanted to do it. So the stress, that hypervigilance, and that fear really marked the beginning few times, and then it went down. And then there was another group of parents where they were expressing that fear and hypervigilance actually never went away. And so they described it happening all the way through their level 3, level 2, and that feeling of feeling really scared all the way through, not feeling relaxed. And that to this day, because some of them had been out 18 months, one had been out 8 years, kind of reported that. To this day, that reminded them that how stressful that period was. And so we see overall these potential pathways. Again, very pilot data, we're hoping to get the grant, but this idea that there are some parents that need more support, much more support in being able to do skin to skin so that they can be regulated, so their infant can be regulated. And sorry, I'm just trying to get to my next slide. There we go. The parent, when we were talking about our ideas about regulating the parent, what we realized, what we were trying to tell them is that we're going to be looking at maternal physiology, we'll be looking at the infant's physiology and their self-reports. And one of the mothers just said, it makes sense. Regulated adults would obviously regulate their babies better. So we also went back to parents to ask them, so given that some mothers struggle, what should we do to think about their mental health? When we know skin to skin is great for babies, how can we make it better for the mother? So we can really get into that biopsychosocial synchrony where we see it beneficial to both mother and child. So some of the suggestions they offered about when staff is talking about skin to skin and how great it is, to be careful when they're saying that and acknowledging that some moms are stressed and that it's okay, because they were reporting in that they feel guilty about everything. And so not doing skin to skin soon enough, not doing skin to skin and having it well enough, or all of those ideas about the pressure of starting the skin to skin, even though they understood why it was good, it triggered guilt. And so this idea of just how you're wording it and understanding that there's a parent and understanding that they have stress. And so that was one of the other things. The next thing that I want to talk about is that they said, ask about skin to skin stress. Asking the parent before it starts some of their feelings so that you can discuss some of the things that make them scared. They felt that with all skin to skin discussion, you should talk about the what if scenario. So the idea of what if this tube came out, or what if this monitor came off, what would happen? Or what are the likelihoods of that happening, and sort of addressing it, because they felt so overwhelmed that they wouldn't express that in the moment to a caregiver or to a staff member when they were going through it. So as a part of the spiel, saying that, offering different delivery preferences in terms of the information about skin to skin. There was a lot of discussion about it depends in the moment and how my baby is doing. Sometimes I want to talk to a nurse or a health professional about, the benefits or how to do it. And sometimes I'm so overwhelmed, it would be better to be able to see a card by the incubator about skin to skin, or being able to look on a website and knowing that there are different options depending on how they were feeling. They talked about graduated touch to build confidence. So understanding that some moms may not be ready, but they want to be recognizing that benefit, helping them feel comfortable, thinking about and really listening to that idea about facilitated tucking, that hand hugging, how that builds confidence in parents in handling their baby, and not to underestimate that power of building confidence. And then the final thing they talked about in terms of being able to be regulated before they go into skin to skin is teaching parents to relax with music or meditative audio beforehand. So they were just talking about being able to put their earphones in, be able to relax, take a deep breath, maybe do some deep breathing, things or techniques that could teach them to sort of relax and then go into the skin to skin, because recognizing that it can be really stressful for parents with medically fragile infants to take this on when some of them have had no experience with infants whatsoever. So these are the results of our little pilot that we have done in combination and with the support of the Canadian Premature Baby Foundation. So we're, again, Fabiana and for the whole group, thank you so much for talking to us and being able to recruit people across the country to be able to help feed our research. And these are some of the people that make it happen on a daily basis, that are many of whom are in Mount Sinai, probably right now, collecting data. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Wow, thank you. The first time I talked to you, I was actually in awe to know that somebody was researching parental mental health and skin to skin, because it is sometimes very scary. My own experience with my 26-weeker, the first time I held him, he was so tiny. I remember felt like a Barbie doll on my chest. And as Shakina mentioned, she didn't breathe. I also didn't breathe because I was so afraid of extubating him. So thank you for doing this work and really addressing the parental stress around skin to skin. So I have a few questions, because your data was actually a little shocking for me to understand that only 30% of hospitals do skin to skin on a regular basis. You said one of the causes is the maternal stress, but is it also cultural shift that units have to encourage more skin to skin and talk to parents about how they feel about doing skin to skin in certain times of the journey in the NICU?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted. I think maternal stress is one where we're very interested in, because we think that skin to skin care can be even better with regulated parents. And so we're trying to do this around a heel lance procedure to sort of try out this hypothesis. But when we think about skin to skin uptake, we're also actually tracking barriers, because it may be not just the culture of the unit, but some parents are traveling an hour. Some parents have other children. The cost of parking. There's so many different things that have come up in terms of when we were asking about other barriers that are not directly called mental health, but all affect the mental health of the parent, because it stresses them. And the more stressed we are, the harder it is to regulate our own distress, and that relationship, developmental science of how babies learn how to regulate distress is that parents regulate that for them over those first few years, and that's how they learn to become independent. And so that's where our research is kind of really rooted in the mother and the birthing parent right now, to really look at this biopsychosocial way, but recognizing there are larger factors that impact skin to skin care and the uptake.
That is incredible. So let's talk about skin to skin and painful procedures, because this is one thing that there's so much research coming out on the benefits of parents being there and holding the baby, as you mentioned, some of the procedures. And a few years ago, I watched a video by NICU that babies were having ROP exams on skin to skin when parents were holding the baby skin to skin. So what is your take on those more significant procedures and parents are present? What have you seen around the world? Because I know you do a lot of work worldwide. What have you seen that is being done, and the benefits of parents being on those more significant procedures?
So I think that the parental presence literature broadly is that parents being present is always great, but and the but is how regulated the parents are. So if a parent does not have the emotional fortitude at that moment, because the NICU stay is a series of ups and downs, highs and lows, as they find out and go with meetings with teams. So that day may not be a good day. So when I talk about emotional fortitude, I think it's important for staff to not judge a parent on a bad day, that to always continue to ask if they should be there if they want to be there for procedures. As a clinical psychologist, I know that doing these painful procedures are can be more difficult. And so there is a training that has to happen in the culture of the union to allow for that skin to skin to happen, and that staff feels comfortable. I think hearing that there are staff that are discouraging parents to be around for those painful procedures, like from an attachment perspective, that's exactly when you'd want a parent to be around, right? It is during these distressing, but recognizing that it's likely also a fear of doing these procedures in front of the parent because it is invasive and not sure how the parent will react, and keeping the baby's well-being at the center. And so I think it depends on the parent, but things that you can do to support them in these very specific events, like to prepare them to be around for a heel lance, for an ROP examination, what it's like beforehand. Like those emotional preparation can actually help, and then help them regulate and be there for their child, because ultimately that's who's best to regulate the baby.
That's wonderful. So for all of you watching us live today, Dr. Rebecca Pilau-Riddell will be back with us next Friday, and she's going to dive into skin-to-skin and pain management. So we're very interested in learning much more about it next week. And before we wrap up, I'm going to share a comment here from one of our viewers. Skin-to-skin is addictive. I remember holding my 27-weeker after 1 week. After that day, I actually wanted and always asked to hold her every day and even longer. So one more thing, my letdown was amazing, crazy. So we all know the benefits, right? So this is incredible. So thank you, Carrie, for joining our live today. And so Dr. Riddell, thank you so much for being with us today. We are very grateful for all the work that you've been doing in this area of skin-to-skin and parental stress and mental health. And we're looking forward to have you again next Friday.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your support as well, Fabiana.
Thank you.
Bye.
And I'm now going to bring back Leah and Jenna, because we touched on a topic that we understand firsthand how hard it is for our mental health to have a baby in the NICU, and all the traumas that we experience in the NICU with our babies, and the long-term impact, because now our kids are older, so we can actually talk about this as I'm 11 years out. Leah is around the same age, and Jenna, I don't remember your twins, I think they're 10 now.
Mm-hmm. So, yep, we're all around the same.
We understand that the trauma doesn't go away. It always stays with us. And I feel, I hear this from a lot of parents, where we think it's the first year, the time when they are in the NICU, but we understand that the triggers can happen anytime for any of us.
Yeah,
oh, for sure.
The other thing that we kind of touched base on when we were prepping for this is when we said we should be talking about this, because remember we were talking about the financial burden on the healthcare system. And we even said, like, should we emphasize that? But we need to, because it's important, but it's also equally acknowledging, I think, that, there's that emotional cost. It comes at a huge emotional, personal toll to be in NICU. And I feel like we can all care about both of these elements of prematurity.
Well, yeah, and that financial, emotional toll doesn't necessarily stop, not to make anyone worried who's watching, whose preemies are still small. It's not as overpowering as it is in the early days. But when you think of things like mental health, we're still paying counseling bills for what we're doing now, not from 10 years ago. Not that it's counseling now that different members of our family are doing because of things that are wrapped up in that time. And, I think for a lot of us whose journey happened before the pandemic, we might have thought that we had come far in our healing journeys. And then having to go through that whole system again, where everyone suddenly was washing their hands and caring about germs in a way that they hadn't before when we wanted them to, I think had a lot of impact for a lot of us. I know in our family, we talked about it a lot, about how, we felt a little prepared for having to do those things because of the time we spent. But now, really looking at, well, why weren't people doing some of these things before to help us? And so I think having these public conversations like this are so important to shifting not only, one of the guests today already talked about that idea of, we're talking to the converted, those of us who are watching, who are part of this, we understand why these things matter, but doing things like today help other people understand the impact that it has on your friends, on your neighbors, on the healthcare system, for years down the road. If nothing else, that impacts your pocketbook as a taxpayer in this country. And so we should all be caring about this.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to bring a comment here. So we were in the NICU in 2020, and the lack of mental support after we left the NICU was surprising. Never received that call to check on us and how we were doing. And thank you, Bunny, for sharing that comment with us. And this is what we hear all the time, that there is the gap in the system, because we all know through research there is an impact on mental health for mothers and fathers and the siblings. So there is a lot of data there. And then we don't have the system in place to support the families. There is a lot of waiting lists in a lot of provinces to access care is expensive. And when the pandemic started, that everything got suspended, CPBF actually created the parent care program to support families with 4 free therapy sessions. We had clinicians from across Canada, and we provide therapy sessions for a lot of families over the last 3 years. But unfortunately, we had no more funding to continue that program on an individual basis. So we offer a therapy group for 6 weeks, but we understand the gaps in the system. And I think that's why days like today, it's very important for us to raise awareness, because prematurity does not end when the baby leaves the hospital. And this is a misconception that so many people have. Okay, now your baby's a little fat, is healthy, or has some delays or some complications, but let's move on. And in the reality, it is a lot of at stake once you go home, right? There is a lot of work to be done to support the families, to support the siblings, to support the grandparents, and obviously to support the parents. So we still have a lot of work to do, but I'm grateful that people are actually open to having these conversations now and sharing. Parents are sharing their stories. We are sharing our stories because it's so very important that when you bring our voice to the table, we bring our voice to research, we can hopefully change policies and make the system better for our families.
Mm-hmm. And like was mentioned, we've all been out about a decade from NICU. And every time I share my NICU journey, every time, it's been conferences, presentations, there are key moments in my journey that I cry. And I remember a neonatologist one time after he didn't have us in NICU, but he came up to me after my presentation and said, "Why do you think you're still crying about this so many years later?" And I thought it was a funny question, but I said, you know what? I really think I'm going to cry about this until I die, because it is so close to our hearts. I mean, we're talking about our babies. And I do think I've walked through a lot of healing, and I celebrate where we're at now with Tessa. But at the same time, it's acknowledging that these journeys change who you are as a parent and as a person. And actually, our journey of prematurity completely changed my career direction. I'm now working at the IWK NICU. And before that, I was in marketing. And it's like, because it changed you so much. And I think I parent differently too. I don't know about you guys, but I think the way that I parent was changed based on Tessa's journey in NICU and how we parented in NICU.
Absolutely. And only yesterday, I got a call from one of our volunteers who had a 23-weeker a few years ago, had a term baby in between, and then had a 33-weeker. And she said, I thought I was going to stay you through the NICU because, you know, being there with a 23-weeker, this baby now is 33 weeks, and the baby was in the NICU for 2 weeks. And she shared the impact it has had in this first year with her new baby at home and the anxiety. And she said she did not expect to have that anxiety. And the way she started parenting, it was very different because of this trauma that was not, she thought was resolved from the first baby, but obviously came back full force. So it does stay with us. And yes, we're gonna cry until until we are old with our stories. But I before we move on to our next guest, because we have two amazing speakers coming up, I want to say that we still have a lot of work to do at CPBF, but I'm very, very grateful to the community that come together to support CPBF, to the parents who volunteer with us, to the two of you who was hosting this Preemie Chats every Friday, because I believe when you work together, bring our voice together, we can absolutely change policies and make system better to support our families and families like Shakina, who had the 22-week babies, who will need a lot of support in the community for a few years to come. So I just want to express my gratitude. I think the day is today that we can thank everyone for being here with us and support our work and make donations so we can continue to help families through this journey. So let's go back to our content now, skin to skin, because we have an amazing video to share. Leah, you can take on from here and talk about Diane's video.
Yeah, so we were talking about mental health, and mental health and skin to skin is so closely paired because, as you heard, it can affect that kangaroo care, that skin to skin with our babies can affect our mental health journey. And it can be a really healing time for both babies and their parents. So there's this beautiful video that was produced by St. Boniface Hospital. It's about 20 minutes long. If you want to watch the full content, we are going to put the link in the comments so that you can find it and watch it. It is beautiful. We're going to just show a snippet of that today. It's been used as a resource for our NICUs on the experience of skin to skin. Let's take a look. When you are born prematurely, similar in the way that we talked about of the parent's journey, the NICU experience lasts long after discharge and sometimes leads to ongoing complications. Violette Barrington Janvier was born at 24 weeks, 18 years ago. Her parents are both neonatologists, so prematurity is a big part of all of their lives. Violette is going to share with us the story of her birth and her journey through puberty, that brought other complications because of her prematurity. Violette, thank you for joining us here today.
Hi, hello, everyone. My name is Violette Barrington Janvier. I was born at 24 weeks. I weighed 680 grams, so like 3 apples. Yes, I do know a lot about prematurity because I was premature and both my parents are neonatologists. My mom actually wrote a book about my birth and her experiences with my birth and the story of other premature babies. It's called Breathe, Baby, Breathe. So yes, I was hospitalized for 4 months when I was born. I had underdeveloped lungs and had a lot of apnea when I was in those 4 months. So my parents have actually told me that I was the queen of apneas. I always took little pauses in my breathing. And my dad was actually the lead researcher in apneas and for premature babies. So he did not enjoy me obviously they didn't enjoy any of the experience. I think them being neonatologists didn't really help because they knew all that could go wrong. So it didn't help. But yes, so after those 4 months that I was hospitalized as a baby, I got out and got better. And everything was going pretty well until I hit puberty. So I was about 12 years old when, well, as every human does, my whole body started to change and grow. And I grew, but my trachea did not. So I was like breathing through a straw for all my daily activities. Doing physical exercise was especially difficult. So at 15 years old, I had a surgery, a tracheal reconstruction surgery. They put a piece of my rib into my trachea to enlarge it so that it was bigger and that it could breathe better. So I spent a month and a half in the intensive care at the Children's Hospital. And a lot of things did not go that well with the surgery. It lasted a lot longer than it should have. I was intubated for a lot longer. I had difficulties with speech afterwards because I was intubated for a while. But then I got better. I had speech therapy. I started eating again, and yeah, I can breathe really well. I remember having a conversation with one of my friends about being grateful for the little things in life. And I told him that I sometimes would wake up in the morning and realize that I could breathe and would just be so grateful for that. So yeah, that's pretty much my story.
It's an amazing story, Violette. And even to say, when you said to be thankful for the little things, I couldn't help but think of you talking about your weight when you were first born, you know, and you were one of those little things to begin with. And yes, it's amazing that you know your story so well. And so is it something that you and your parents talk about, your journey through NICU? Is it a regular topic in your house, or how did they tell you about the journey?
I think it's been a regular topic all throughout me growing up because, well, both my parents are neonatologists, so they will talk about like premature babies and stuff that happened at work that day. And also, well, my mom wrote a book about me. So when I was about 10, she, before publishing it, she asked me to read it or read it with me, just so that I would give my consent and I was sure that there wasn't anything that I didn't want to be shared. And I remember reading the book with her and telling her that I was so grateful that I knew the ending and that I was surviving, because I did not think that book was very happy. It was a pretty sad book. So yes.
I love that your mom read that with you ahead of time, because I do think, as a NICU parent myself, that our NICU journeys are almost sacred. They're private. And so for your mom to even kind of get your consent to put that story out there is amazing. And I read the book, and I agree with you that, I the whole time was thinking, what happened to Violette? And so we put the link in the comments to that book, because it definitely is a very emotional, challenging, beautiful journey. But I wanted to ask you how your life is going now.
My life is going really well. As I said, I can breathe now. I'm very grateful for that. Before, when I was around the ages of 12 to 15, so before I got my surgery, I thought that I was just like a lazy person, that I didn't like exercising that much. But ever since I had my surgery, I now work out twice a week. I go and run. I've actually participated in official races, like the Ottawa 5 kilometers or like the Spartan race. I really enjoy physical activity, and it's just, lots of new doors have been opened. And I also have a little learning disability because of my prematurity. But I am a CJEP student, and I'm doing really well, so I'm powering through that.
Wow, Violette, that's awesome to hear. And I love that you're running. That whole kind of understanding of you thinking you just didn't like to exercise, it's huge. I have 2 asthmatic kids myself, and that's always what we think, or they thought they didn't like to exercise until they could breathe. It makes such a difference when you can actually breathe during physical activity. And I love to hear that you're running and we're in official races. That's incredible and incredibly inspiring to share with other people, because I mean, even neonatology has come a long way in 18 years since you were born.
Yes, it has.
I have one more question for you. I just want to ask if you have a takeaway message for anybody who's watching you today.
That there will be hard moments, and things won't always go the way you want them to. And just to try and power through and find support in your community and find people who have shared experiences, and it really helps to just talk about it. Just find support, and yeah.
Are you in a group now, Violette, with other fellow preemies? Do you have kind of a network of people?
Well, through my parents, I know a lot of neonatologists and of preemies. So we'll sometimes have like little suppers at my house but it's not anything like official.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. I think anytime we are brave enough to share our personal experiences, then it impacts others. And as your whole family could attest to, I'm sure that when you have a baby in NICU, we always wonder about their future and how our babies will look when they're 18 years old and older. And so to hear from you today is very inspiring. And so thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Did you know benefits of skin to skin include stabilizing baby's heart rate, improving baby's breathing pattern, encouraging baby's growth, relieving pain baby might feel during certain procedures like a heel poke, and many more.
Oh my goodness. I have to say, I absolutely love these little videos and tidbits that we're sharing throughout the day today as we come to almost to the end now. We're coming up on our final guest, and I'm really excited to wrap things up here with a special look at where we started with skin to skin care and where we're headed. And to guide us through that journey, we're going to invite Dr. Nalini Singhal to join us. And she is a well-respected clinician and researcher Among her many titles and accolades, she is the director of the Canadian Neonatal Foundation. She's a professor of pediatrics at the University of Calgary. She's a member of the Kangaroo Mother Care Working Group with the World Health Organization, and I'm hoping that she's going to be able to join us. We saw her earlier today, and I'm just waiting to see if she's still with us. Dr. Nalini, there you are. Hello and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know you and I had a chance to chat beforehand to talk about what we're going to kind of close the show with today. And I think that people are just going to be so enthusiastic about what you have to share.
So go ahead, Jenna.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I know that you have a photo that you want to share with us that I'm going to bring up for everyone now. It gives us a little look of then and now and the future. So why don't you start us off with a little history lesson of where we've been when it comes to skin to skin.
The first black picture that you see there is in Chicago in the early 50s, where they're showing off in an exhibition these isolates that are going to keep the baby warm. And the one below that, obviously, is, the modern isolate with a baby on CPAP. But I think that has to be something of the past. That's where we needed to come from to learn where we need to go. And the future in my mind is not a healthcare provider, but a healthcare worker. No, it's a healthcare helper. And our job, and I've been a neonatologist for over 42 years, and I started with thinking, well, we knew best and that's what we should do. But it's the family that is going to provide the care. And I am going to change it rather than mother care to family care, because I think that's where we need to go, and put a picture of a father there for the future. The only difference with the mother providing the skin to skin and the father is some of the bacteria that the mother has that help the baby's immune system. But just a little story on the side, I was doing rounds in a level 2 nursery, and I would have this gentleman, elderly white-haired gentleman, doing skin to skin with a 32-weeker. So I asked him, he said, I'm the grandfather, I'm retired. My daughter told me my only job every day is to do skin to skin from 9 to 12. And here I am, 9 to 12 every day. And that was just so fabulous. And that is the future. The only slight caveat I want to put in there is KMC is more than skin to skin. Skin to skin is an integral part of it, but it is more than skin to skin. And we do have to worry about the nutrition and how we're going to feed the babies. And that's why I have a picture of a baby being fed with a cup, rather than if I ask myself, would I rather have a tube or a cup? I know you're all going to say you'd rather be fed with a tube, right? No, you're all going to say you'd rather be fed with a cup. And that's what the babies are telling us, and we need to listen to the babies. So that's the key message I want to give. And the other thing is somebody, I think it was Carrie Custer, who had put into something about antenatal classes. And so I was there in Norway about a month ago, and that's exactly what I convinced them to do. That the families are the ones that have to push the healthcare system. And the way they're going to push it is if we prepare them in the antenatal classes, both for care that some babies may be premature, but also that they want to do skin to skin. And my global health CEO in Norway had actually had a baby that she wanted to do skin to skin on, and was told whether she couldn't, and she said, no, I'm not accepting that answer. So that's where I think I would love to go with the families. And the last piece, I just want us to remember, it's not only the mental health of the mother related to the stress of providing skin to skin. I just want to give you, I don't usually present data, but I just want to give you a little piece of the data in that area. Postpartum depression is extremely common. Somewhere from 1 in 5 to 1 in 10 mothers get some symptoms of postpartum depression. And that can be decreased significantly by the mothers providing the care in the NICU. So yes, their stress may go up because of skin to skin, but even when they've really studied the stressors and the different psychological state of the mother, it is much better with caring for her baby than it is from being separated from her baby. The data on the family and the fathers is still very skimpy, and we don't have enough of it, but hopefully we'll get enough of it in the near future. So I do want to remember that when we're talking about healthcare and when we're talking about healthcare costs, that we take that into account on the importance of decreasing the healthcare costs by improving the mental health status and anxiety scores and depression scores of the mother.
I think that's such an important part to highlight, that we don't have enough data about some things still. And I think that's one of the hopeful parts about where we're at, I think, with technology and how much progress we've made in the last little bit in terms of being able to provide care for our infants, that now we're able to take the time to look a little bit deeper and see what we need to be doing for everyone involved, mothers, fathers, even like you say, the grandparents who can come in. And I love that story because that also happened. I have a lovely picture of my father sitting with one of my boys in the NICU doing skin to skin, because we had such fantastic healthcare providers that made sure that we understood that it doesn't have to be just one person. Anyone who loves this baby and the baby is able to do it is going to benefit from that time. I'm wondering, Doctor, if you could talk a little bit about how we keep making those shifts happen, though, within the healthcare industry. Like you say, it's you want healthcare providers to think of themselves as really just there to help the families rather than to have all the power in that sense. But that's a big ask for a lot of people.
It is a big ask, but the way I look at it is, if we don't ask, we're going to get zero. If we ask, we'll get a little bit, and then a little more, and then a little more, and then a little more. So I think if we're looking at really shifting the paradigm, and it will be the families and the parents that are gonna be responsible, that are gonna help shift the paradigm. So if we start with antenatal classes, we start with the designs of the NICU, we start with healthcare providers convincing other healthcare. I've been working on this for a while now. And I started with it because I do global health more in the last 15, 20 years, that I thought, this is not for global. This is for all of us. Because the babies do better and the families do better, and why shouldn't our babies and families do better? And so this really is, and there are now studies, you're probably aware of an immediate KMC study that was done, granted, in developing countries, but it showed 25% reduction in their mortality. So we're not going to be able to show that percentage of reduction in mortality. But I think if we focus on the baby, and you need researchers, because I believe that the baby needs all the 5 senses that adults need for getting better. So if we can get researchers to focus on that, I think we'll slowly get there. The other thing would be some of you are, you're journalists, past journalists, and writing more stories, and maybe getting some parents who are in marketing to help us market our messages better, because healthcare providers currently are known to be the worst people at marketing their messages, other than the Cancer Society.
I love how very direct you are with your call outs. It's wonderful. Fabienne is asking there in the comments, how can we better support our families with such a paternalistic system that's in place right now?
I think part of it will be, we do have I agree with you, a paternalistic system. I'm not going to disagree with that at all. But I think you've got some advocates amongst healthcare, like people that are sort of, have been doing this for a while and are now advocating for it. And I think if the parents, we can support the parents by two ways. One is preparing them, and the second is telling them that it is your baby. I mean, nobody comes and takes money out of your bank account. You say no. And so you're going to say no, because I want the parents to be able to say, and I was listening to, I don't know who it was, that the parents should be able to say, wash your hands. Doctor, I'm told that you all need to wash your hands, and, put a thing in front of them, and empowering the parents. So I think that that's the two ways. So it has to come from both sides. Does that answer your question, baby Hannah?
I think it does, and I think it brings up that idea of how do you kind of balance that aspect of, we need families to step up and be empowered and to ask these things, but we're also dealing with parents who are already carrying such a load. How can we put that on those parents that they need to be empowered to do this as well?
I am not sure I quite have an answer to that, but I think that, Silke will tell me, and I know her quite well, that unless you empower us, we're not going to get anywhere. And the only way that we're going to empower parents is for parents believing in themselves. And how do we get around it? Maybe we can prepare some more videos. Maybe we can prepare some more stories that parents, if they're, if the mother's 28 weeks in labor and she's lying in bed, she can watch these videos about the role of parents in the NICU. We have videos on outcome of babies that they can watch, but we don't have anything on the role of parents and the importance of parents. And that maybe is something small that would be offered to the woman who's the mother who is struggling and is in labor. I don't know.
No, I don't think there's necessarily an easy answer or any answer out there, other than the more that we ask the question and have these conversations, the more someone has an idea that sparks in their head, and the next thing you know, there's going to be a whole series of videos just like that for parents who are on bed rest and waiting. I know I spent 12 weeks waiting to get to the NICU. That was a lot of time that I could have done.
Videos.
I know, I could have watched them all.
So I just wonder whether that's something the parents can help with, in saying this is. And it's not just the parents. I think it has to have a component that, whether it's Dr. Shah or whether whoever it is, people saying, the healthcare people saying, that is your role. And we respect that role, so that they don't feel that it's coming only from one side.
Yes, I think it's very important that it's that partnership of both. It's one thing for, especially those parents like ourselves here today who are, maybe 10 years out and have the emotional capacity to come and try to be advocates. But it also takes the healthcare workers like you who have the gravitas of the career that you've had to be able to stand up to your colleagues and say, hey, this is what we need to do to make this work for these infants. That's what it's all about. It's not about us. It's not about you. It's about them.
It's about them.
Yeah.
It's about them and their families, and they'll do much better. And I know I'm talking to the converted here, but this is, it's a similar talk that I gave at the International Pediatric Association and, the National Neonatal Forum in India. And so I try and plant it as much as I can, but whether it gets somewhere or not, we'll see.
Well, like you said, you've seen a shift over the years. You've seen those stepping stones work, and in 5 or 10 years, we'll have a different conversation, I think.
I hope so.
I do too. Thank you so much for joining us. I think your message was the perfect spot to end our group of guests today. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Jenna.
And before we say goodbye for the day, I want to thank all of you for joining as well. And I'm going to call my co-hosts back up to the stage here. Hello.
Okay, I need to make a comment, and I hope Dr. Nalini is still here, because Leah and I been advocating for family integrated care for many years, because we were both part of the family integrated care study when we were in the NICU. And 10 years later, I go around the world to talk about family integrated care, and it seems that it's still something so different that parents have to be involved in the care of their babies. So I want to ask Dr. Nalini about her take on that. Why the uptake of such a mode of care is so slow? Why the hospitals don't, even in Canada, right? We started the study in Canada, 19 units were part of the study. And if you look at today, how many units are really integrating families in the care of the babies, empowering them and offering education for the parents to really start to change this paradigm of this paternalistic approach that we have in the hospital. So I still struggle with that. That is, some places where still parents are not there or empowered to be there or receiving enough education to continue the journey ahead. So Leah, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's a $1 million question, Fabiana. I think, there are so many, even the places that are integrating family integrated care into their way of being, it still gets to a point, I think, where it comes down to who is leading the care. And so I think, we want families to be involved, or healthcare providers want families to be involved, but to what point? And I find that when we have families who are challenging the system or challenging maybe even the normative of what a family should look like in NICU, then walls go up, and it's like that immediate shift back to that paternalistic way of being, right? It's almost like that's their automatic, their go-to of how they care. And I think it really starts with where, the initial learning even takes place for healthcare providers. Like, we need to integrate that system and talk about, what partnership really truly looks like, is that it's not bringing families in afterward for a stamp of approval or even just to behave and follow the rules, but work with us and let's help, work together to create something where a family can be a family in NICU and have their family culture and have that guarded and protected, and where parents can learn how to be parents right from the get-go, and have the healthcare providers be simply the transitional figure that is there just to help them through this window of time in that family life, as opposed to kind of the ownership that sometimes happens when our babies are immediately taken from us. And then as parents, we see them on machines or things that are helping them, and automatically we think that machine is more important to that child than I am, because that's keeping them alive, when really we have to look at the emotional, social ability of our babies. They need us as much and sometimes more than any of the technology that's in NICU.
Absolutely. And we saw what happened during COVID when the parents are not even allowed. And I use the word allowed because it was a very hard time for families in the NICU, as we all experienced lockdowns, and the parents who had the babies in the NICU, depends on which unit they were. They couldn't take turns. There was one parent at a time or one parent throughout the NICU stay, so there was no rotation. We heard that babies died with only one parent being present and not the other parents. And Jenna, you were part of the present study. We were being worked with Dr. Marcia Camboyo for 2 years now on recommendations for an ICUs in case there is another pandemic, the post-pandemic recovery, and if there is another pandemic, on how hospitals can actually keep parents together safely, with a lot of evidence that we are launching these recommendations now. But we still saw how hard it was to do that work with all the evidence available that parents are essential caregivers, not visitors, and there was so much resistance to come up with recommendations that just make sense. Parents and babies belong together. So I have a lot of work to do, but I really want to end this chat today on, with hope, with positivity and optimism that we are working towards something great for our families in the future, to support our families, to support the healthcare providers who support our families in the NICUs, because I feel that when we work together, we are much better. We're a much better system to hear our voices, to bring our voice. And I'm very grateful to Dr. Prakesh Shah, who really is a big advocate in bringing our voices to quality improvement, to conferences, to raise the profile of parents and the importance of and value of our stories. So I just want to really express my gratitude to everyone. It's been such a beautiful day with families, healthcare voices, because all our voices are so very important for the future of our preemies.
And like you mentioned, today would not have been possible without all of our guests who are here, who bravely shared their stories and their expertise. And of course, everyone who's watching today, who gave comments and questions and took part that way, and our generous sponsors. So we'd like to thank our sponsors of today's Preemie Chats, AstraZeneca, Medela, and Pampers, in collaboration with the Canadian Preterm Birth Network, the Canadian Neonatal Network, Evidence-Based for Improving Quality, or EPIC, Canadian Neonatal Follow-Up Network, Family Integrated Care, Canadian Association of Neonatal Nurses, the European Foundation for the Care of the Newborn Infant, and Global Alliance for Newborn Care. It takes, as you just heard, a lot of collaboration to put a day like this one together.
It does. And it takes every one of you who are watching as well to make this happen. Thank you. Feel free to keep popping your comments in there. And don't forget all the other ways that you can support awareness for World Prematurity Day. Keep an eye out for those buildings and monuments that are lit up purple for the illumination campaign. And if you see one, make sure you snap a photo of it and you can share it. Tag Canadian Preemies if you're on Instagram, or hashtag Preemie Power Canada so we see that.
Exactly. And also, don't forget that we have our online auction. The link was shared earlier on today on the comment session. We have great prizes and you could win, while at the same time supporting CPBF and its mission to support families in and after NICU.
Together, we can create a brighter future for all NICU families. And also, we can't forget to tell you, don't forget to join us this Wednesday, November 22nd, for a very special first-time experience. Very excited about this scientific Preemie Chat. It's going to be moderated by Dr. Shovik Mitra and Silke Matter, and that will look at both sides of the conversation of skin to skin. So it fits right in with our World Prematurity Day theme. And they're going to be looking at very preterm infants and skin to skin within that window of the first 72 hours. So it will be very interesting. There is a registration. We love to know who's watching these special Preemie Chats. And so that is currently in the comments section. So I encourage you, head over to that link, register for the event, and tune in on Wednesday for this very special scientific Preemie Chat.
And if you happen to miss part of today's presentation, we've been online here now for 2 hours. So if you want to rewatch it or you miss some of it, you know someone else who should see it, you can find it in its entirety on the website, canadianpreemies.org. You can see it there on your screen. You will also find so many resources on the website and all the ways that you can become involved with the organization and support NICU families.
Absolutely. And we'll be back next Friday for another Preemie Chat focused on skin to skin at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Understand skin to skin care and other caregiver-led strategies to managing pain in the NICU. I hope you can join us on our next 2 Preemie Chats on Wednesday and next Friday. So have a great weekend, everyone, and happy celebrations tonight. Thank you and stay well.